Good evening and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show. This is the show that's dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So here we are, Sunday night, Ben's album challenge. This has become a major challenge every week. I like to get 2 or 3 listens in, and it's not always easy to do. Just because the first couple I just like to play it so my ear kind of gets familiar with what I'm listening to, and then I like to sit and just listen to it in detail. It's not always easy to do. I was able to do it this week because I actually got the album early enough. Anyways, this is the Alan Parsons project, and the title of the album is Eye in the Sky. For those of you who don't know what it is we're doing, basically my friend Ben gives me an album every week, and on Ben's album challenge I review it, and that's what I'm doing. So here we go. So overall, this album, I think, well, first of all, this is the album, in case none of you have seen it before. Pretty famous album, I think. Pretty well, it's very well known anyways, let's put it that way. I remember this album from when I was a kid. Teenager, I guess, probably a better term. I was a teenager and I remember the album, but had no interest in it back then. I heard some of the stuff on the radio and I didn't find it interesting to me at all. To me, it was too mellow, too different. I wasn't into all that synthesizer noise at the time. I just give me some guitars and screaming and I'm happy, right? That's what it was when I first heard this. I may have incorrectly, when I did my this week, called this a American progressive rock band. I don't know what I was thinking. That I may have had Todd Rundgren in my head and said that, but this is actually a British band. I have actually British pair, I guess. Alan Parsons project, Alan Parsons and the other guy. The two of them put these albums together. So anyways, back to where I was. I digressed a bit. So we have 10 tracks on the album. The album's a pretty solid album, I think. Lots of keyboards on here. Lots of interesting synthesizer bits put into the music throughout the album, quite a bit. A lot of memorable riffs, because some of these songs went on to become part of synonymous with other things. Some good vocals. The vocalist is very mellow. He has a very mellow voice, almost similar to the guy from Steely Dan. I think this guy's more mellow, but his vocals are clearer too, I think, in some ways. But they're both very similar, I think. I find a lot of similarities between the two bands. This one, of course, is much more progressive in their elements than Steely Dan is. Their songs are a little bit more innovative that way, instrumentally anyways. Some really good stuff here. They do use orchestral orchestral movement in some of their songs as well. There's a couple of tracks that have full-on orchestras in them. Lots of trumpet, lots of flute, wind instruments and flute and stuff like that. So anyways, the first track is called Serious, and it's an instrumental. I think there's 2 instrumentals on this album. Yeah, the 9-track Mama Gumma is also an instrumental. So you've got these 2 instrumentals, both well known. This one here, I remember this from my Need for Speed game. It starts out at the beginning of my when I turn the Need for Speed on, this comes on all the time. I didn't know when I bought the Need for Speed, or didn't know that was the Alan Parsons project that did the music for it. It's got a nice keyboard instrument with some guitar in here, solo at the end, which I like quite a bit. And this song doesn't kind of end it. I always thought this song and the next song were one song, but they're actually 2 different songs. So this song drifts right in, the guitar bit just goes right into the next song. You don't even get a break, there's no break. And the next song is Eye in the Sky. So I gave both of these tracks an 8. The Need for Speed one I like quite a bit, because that was the one that I remember as soon as I heard it. I know, yeah, I know what that is. Eye in the Sky, of course, I think is probably the most famous track on this album. Lots of guitar bits in this, lots of kind of good vocal parts here. The guy's vocals are pretty smooth, both the lead part and the backing vocals that are on this track. It's a pretty well-known song, pretty catchy. I gave it an 8. I believe it's probably my favorite track on the album. It's no wonder. It's probably a lot of people's favorite track on this particular album. I haven't listened to the album enough to really get any kind of deep cut, and then it may never happen, because it's as good as this album is, it's not really my cup of tea. I like it better than I did when I was a kid, because I've grown to appreciate this kind of stuff more. So the third track, Children of the Moon, pretty heavy beat, the vocals are very clear, the rhythm is very catchy. I think there's a real good catchy rhythm to this song. It's poppy. It's got that kind of Steely Dan feel to it. It almost sounds like a Steely Dan song at some parts too. Yeah, so I like this song quite a bit, Children of the Moon. I gave this one a 6. My favorite track, because he always asks me, my favorite track in this case is probably Eye in the Sky or Mama Gama. But I think I like Eye in the Sky more because it actually has some vocals on it. Gemini, harmonic vocal song, lots of methodic sounds to this song. Keyboards and synthesizer part is really good. I liked it. It was a pretty cool song. Next song is Silence and I. It's got a piano opening with some organ and some keys playing here. It moves. It kind of gives me this feeling like, because it has that orchestral part in it, where you get lots of trumpet and flute and, well, I don't know if there's flute, but there's definitely a lot of woodwind instruments on this. Maybe some violins too. I don't recall if I heard violins. I think there were some violins here too. So it has this kind of grandiose kind of what do they call it, orchestral sound to it, which also gives it that kind of a movie track feeling. Like it's like the background music for a movie track. Maybe it was. Maybe that's why I'm thinking that. But pretty good song, I think, overall. Silence and I. That's the name of it. Next song is You're Gonna Get Your Fingers Burned. I like this song. At the beginning, it kind of waned on me a bit towards the end of the song, because it's got this kind of country flair to it. It's a poppy number, but it's got this kind of country flair, which the guitar solo really adds to that flair. So yeah, it's the one track on the album that's kind of got that country feel to it. Psychobabble is the next one. Really cool, interesting bass opening with some piano. I like that a lot. The vocals are a little coarser on the song, so he's straining a bit more. And it's kind of got that kind of another Steely Dan feel, but this is a harder Steely Dan feel. Like it's like a harder song. I like the flute and or the synthesizer flute. I'm not sure which one it is, but there's like that. But I didn't really overall like the song. It seemed a little bit disjointed, so I gave it only a 5. Mama Gama, an instrumental. This one I gave an 8. Some heavy bass riffing with some real great keyboards in the beginning of the song. Really catchy stuff, right? It got some well-known riff in the song, so that the song, if you heard the song, you would know the riff. It's a pretty well-known song. So all that bit is really good, and the keyboard bit is really good as well. Overall, this is a pretty solid song. I think it's a very memorable song. It's not one you forget too easy. So I gave it an 8. I don't think I like it quite as much as Eye in the Sky. Because to me, Eye in the Sky and Sirius kind of go together. Like they're kind of part of one song. I never actually ever knew that they were 2 songs until I got the album. Step by Step. The Nice keyboard and drum opening, kind of a poppy, upbeat song. There's some bluesy parts to it as well. Again, it's got some more of that Steely Dan feel into it. So they got quite a bit of that Steely Dan. When they go more pop oriented, they got that Steely Dan feel to them. But there's quite a few progressive elements to their music that you don't find in Steely Dan at all. Old and Wise, nice flute and violins to open. Another piano bit on this one. Some heavy, some kind of heavy parts to it. Overall, I think it's got a kind of a, I guess the best way to put it is it's heavy in a way that it gives you that kind of a emotional, heavy feeling. I don't know if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm not explaining it right, but I just found this song overall was kind of a heavy, almost a sad song in some ways, but heavy on that emotional side. It's called Old and Wise. I didn't really care for this track. So this track and Psychobabble, I'm not too crazy about it. Either of them. But overall, not a really terrible song. Not a really bad album. I think it's probably gets like if I was going to give it an overall rating, I would probably give it a 7. Because what works on this album works really, really well. And what doesn't work on this album, I just kind of dismiss. I don't listen to it as much. But the stuff I did like, I liked a lot. So overall, I thought it was a pretty solid album. And I own it, so now I can listen to it whenever I want. I like the cover too. I think it's kind of neat. The green part really attracts me, being Irish. I always like the green part. The only thing is that the back disc has broken parts in the holder, and so you have to be careful when you open it. I have some other ones. I'll probably switch it out. But overall, it's a pretty solid album. I don't know any of their other stuff. I'm sure I do. I'm sure I've heard some of their other stuff, but this one's a pretty solid one. So I think if you were going to get into this band, this would probably be the album to go that route with. Anyways, there you have it. This is Alan Parsons' project, Eye in the Sky, on Ben's album challenge for the week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was fun to do. So please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated. If you want to make comments about the album, if there's something that you think that maybe I missed or it should have been brought up, by all means, please let me know. And we'll be back again next Sunday with another album challenge from Ben. I look forward to seeing you then, and you have yourself a good evening. Good night.